The Social Security Trustees Report of 2018. It's out. We're going to talk about it. This is why you pay me the big bucks, so I have to read this stuff so you don't have to. But you're going to get a lot of education if you just listen and watch, because we're going to talk about the main topics that are really, really interesting. And given that we own it as taxpayers in the United States, we need to be aware of what's going on there. So welcome to Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel, my friends, the place where you come to learn about Social Security's Trustees Report. So let's dive right into it. Don't forget to subscribe down below. And of course, thumbs up and comments are always welcome and helpful to tell the YouTube algorithm, hey, this guy is putting out stuff we want to get out there in front of other people. All right, so this is straight from a guy, a YouTube subscriber in Florida. Mr. Bruce sent this to me. And it's a socialsecurity.gov, OACT, Trustees Report Summary, and I'll put the link to the show notes. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to move over into my Google Docs so I can show you some of the highlights I did, and then we're going to come back because the Google Docs doesn't keep the graphs very well, so we'll come back to this later on. But I'll put a link to the show notes. So let's move over here. That way you can see what I've created here. I just highlighted so I read the thing and I just highlighted what I want to talk about. So let's see, summary of 2018 annual reports, a message to the public. So we're going to talk, basically, we're just going to go over the highlights and you can comment below, but I'll give you some of my thoughts. Both Social Security and Medicare face long-term financial shortfalls under currently scheduled benefits and financing. If you were not aware of that, my friends, it's time to pull your head out of the sand because it's been well known for many, many years. The trustees recommend that lawmakers take action sooner rather than later to address these shortfalls so the broader range of solutions can be considered and more time available to phase in changes while giving the public adequate time to prepare. So they haven't done it, and I'm not holding my breath. Social Security and Medicare, and this is huge. Social Security and Medicare together account for 42% of the federal program expenditures in 2017. So, as much as we don't like government spending, you take Social Security and Medicare, and then you put defense in there. Where is the rest of government spending? Foreign aid, yeah, I don't like it either. I get that. That's a small potato thing. Spending on research at the NIH, National Institute for Health. Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I do like some of it, but some of it's silly. You know, how do frogs copulate in Uganda? I mean, what's that about? But at the end of the day, I mean, all that stuff adds up. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, Social Security and Medicare account for almost a half of our expenditures. And then you throw in the Department of Defense in there too. It's just ridiculous. So now here it gets worse. Social Security, both Social Security and Medicare will experience cost growth substantially in excess of GDP growth through the mid-2030s due to rapid population aging caused by large baby boomer generations entering retirement and lower birth rate generations entering employment. What does that mean? We're not having enough kids. We're not having enough kids. That's a fact. We're not having enough kids. So if you're one of these anti-child people, say, oh, children, blah, blah, blah. Thankful. You should be giving thanks to the people who are having kids, because those are going to keep your Social Security and Medicare a heck of a lot more solvent than if everyone became an empty nester. That's just a fact. So I got 4. I'm doing our due diligence to help out the Social Security and Medicare systems. All right. So when you see people with lots of kids, you're like, no. Those kids are going to contribute much, much more so than you did, frankly, because the facts are a lot of the people in Social Security, the taxes we're going to be paying going forward are going to be more than the taxes that we were paying in the past. And we've already see that, which I'll share with you here in just a second. So we need more children, my friends. So encourage your young folks to have babies to keep Social Security fund running. I had a guy, Lewis, on YouTube commenting that he's very inclined to vote for Bernie Sanders because he wants to make sure Social Security is solvent. I said, Lewis, you got to be telling people to have more and more kids. And he said, I get that. And in fact, Lewis said he has a bunch of nieces and nephews and a couple of his own. So all good. But I mean, again, we need more children to keep it solvent. By the way, I just want to take an issue with the idea that people are a net cost to society. Nothing could be further from the truth. I find that absolutely offensive. Wall Street Journal, every Thanksgiving, I don't know if they still do it. I don't read the Wall Street Journal anymore, but they used to run this quote around Thanksgiving, talking about how people would come to America, the pilgrims and whatnot. And it just is just a barren land, obviously, from the point of view of a pilgrim. But then they'd also run this editorial too. I always thought it was wonderful. It said how people are, if you look in Africa, where people are starving, and what the zero population growth organizations would say is that a pig, because it can feed people, is more valuable than a child. And I just remember that they used to run these simultaneously, at least, and I don't know if they do it anymore, around Thanksgiving time. But I just remember thinking about that's so true. The idea that a pig who can give you a short-term sustenance is more valuable. That's what we think in the West for those people in Africa when they were starving, than a human being is just sad, because that pig won't create anything. It'll create some food for a little bit of time, but it's not going to create any everlasting wealth. Whereas a child and his brain and a human being will. And that's sad. If you're thinking like that, I just ask you to think differently, because it's sad. Human beings are not a net cost. Human beings are a net win for society and for everything as a whole, without question. In later years, projected costs expressed as a share of GDP rise slowly for Medicare and are relatively flat. Let me just actually delete that real quick. All right, good. I don't need anyone popping in my email. In later years, projected costs expressed as a share of GDP rise slowly for Medicare and are relatively flat for Social Security, reflecting very gradual population aging caused by increasing longevity and slower growth per beneficiary healthcare costs. Again, because as you get older, a lot of the baby boomers essentially have died off, and there's a lot less coming up to take their place in the overall context of the program, because they're not having as many kids. All right, so Social Security is one aspect. So we got Social Security and Medicare. Over the program's 83-year history, Social Security has collected roughly $20.9 trillion and has paid out $18 trillion, leaving asset reserves of $2.9 trillion at the end of 2017 in its two trust funds. Here's important. The OASI, Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, that's your Social Security retirement plan. That's your Social Security retirement money. All right, that's OASI, Old Age and Social Insurance, your retirement money, which pays retirement and survivor benefits, and the disability insurance, Social Security disability income, SSDI, DI. So OASI, Old Age and Survivors Insurance, DI is disability insurance. That's your disability, Social Security disability, which pays disability benefits, are by law separate entities. However, to summarize overall Social Security finances, the trustees have traditionally emphasized the financial status of the hypothetical OASI and DI trust funds. The combined funds, designated OASDI, satisfy the trustees' test of short-range 10-year financial adequacy, because the trustees project that the combined fund asset reserves at the beginning of each year will exceed that year's projected costs throughout the short-range projection period. However, the funds fail the test of long-term actuarial balance, and no one's stock sharp of that. The trustees project that the combined trust funds will be depleted in 2034, the same as last year's. All right, so they're saying the same thing. Consider separately, though, the DI, disability income trust fund reserves become depleted in 2032, whereas the social insurance, the retirement Social Security benefits, become depleted in 2034. In last year's report, the projected reserve depletion were 2028 for DI and 2035 for Social Security retirement benefits. So remember, they're projecting now that the disability, SSDI, disability insurance, will be depleted by 2032. But last year, they were projecting to be depleted by 2028. What changed? Well, the change in reserve depletion date for the disability insurance is largely due to continuing favorable experience for disability insurance applications and benefit awards. In addition, average benefit levels for disabled worker beneficiaries were lower than expected in 2017 and are expected to be lower in the future. Disability applications have been declining steadily since 2010. And the number of disabled worker beneficiaries has been falling since 2014. So they changed the laws around to make it harder to get a claim. If you remember my man Skip Ritchie from Skip Ritchie Disability Law, he talked about that it's harder to get the claim. You don't have these rubber stamping judges in West Virginia anymore, just stamping. It's harder to get a claim, which means if you're not disabled, but you're faking it, it's going to be tough. If you are disabled, you need to have your claim set up properly. And again, you should hire an attorney to help you with that, because the first thing they're looking at for disability insurance is how to decline you. If you're a legitimate disabled, you better get your ducks in a row to get a legitimate claim up there so it can be processed and approved. If you're a faker, it's going to be most likely declined anyway. And that's why we're seeing the solvency of disability insurance go on a couple extra years. All right. Social Security's total cost is projected to exceed its total income in 2018 for the first time since 1982. What happened in 1982? Oh, that's when they started the taxation of Social Security benefits in 1983, to be precise. Interesting, though, right? So Social Security's cost, that was back then. They're saying, oh, no, we're going to run out of money for Social Security. Let's raise taxes on the benefits. And they did in 1983. With a Republican president and a Democrat run the Congress. So just FYI, bipartisan. Social Security's costs will be financed with a combination of non-interest income, interest income, and net redemptions of trust fund assets reserves from the general fund until 2034, when it will be depleted.